A handful of Republicans are already raising objections tonight to those mortgage deduction changes and the elimination of a deduction for state and local income taxes. And Elaine, GOP leaders may have no choice but to negotiate, because to get this bill through the House and Senate, they are going to need almost everyone in their party to vote yes.
Well, so Nancy, based on what you just outlined, the plan in its current form is getting some blowback from some Republicans. What are the changes that would need to be made in order for some of those lawmakers to get behind it?
Well, I think the first thing that GOP leaders are going to want to do is to figure out how widespread this concern is, because they can afford to lose a few members. But if it's more than a few, more than a dozen, then they need to start looking for some fixes. And so one of the things that a lot of these lawmakers, in particular lawmakers from more expensive states like California and New York and New Jersey, are saying is that the housing stock is more expensive in their states. So people will often get above that $500,000 cap for a new home, and so they would be hurt. And then these people get hurt again because there's the elimination of this deduction for states with high state and local income taxes. So they say that's a double whammy for their constituents, and there are already a few Republican lawmakers who have said flat out they're not supporting it, whether they're playing hardball or whether this is their final reaction is yet to be determined, and it really depends on how far GOP leaders are willing to move.
Yeah, I imagine some of those lawmakers in those states you mentioned are probably hearing from some of their constituents right about now. Well, the president is emphasizing the tax cut part of this, but Republicans seem to be unwilling to use that term. Is there a disconnect in messaging?
They want to emphasize that this is an overhaul of the tax code, Elaine. They argue they're not just cutting, but they're also raising revenue as well. The problem is that a lot of their ideas for raising revenue, as we just discussed, are running into some roadblocks right now. And outside analysts say at first blush, this really looks a lot more like a tax cut than a tax plan, because it's very easy to make those cuts across the board, not as easy to tell either individuals or businesses that some of your cherished deductions are going away. So for the most part, Republican leaders have not made those tough choices. This is mostly a package of tax cuts. And so the president, in a way, is being more open about that. But Republicans still want to argue that they're simplifying the tax code incredibly, that most Americans will be able to do their taxes on a postcard and send it in. So that is really the message that they are invested in right now.
And Nancy, there's a self-imposed deadline of getting this plan passed by Thanksgiving, which is less than a month away. How realistic is that goal, and what happens if they miss it?
It depends on how long negotiations within the Republican Party take. The reason that they want to move so quickly is that the longer that this hangs out there, the longer that lobbyists and special interests have to mobilize against this particular loophole being eliminated or that one, and that's where things can often tend to fall apart. So they're planning to begin debate on the bill next week in the House, assuming they can get it through the House. It then has to go to the Senate, and Senate Republicans have already indicated that they may want to make some changes to this plan, and that takes up more time. And so, Thanksgiving is going to be a very difficult lift. That's why you started to hear the president saying that he just wants it done by Christmas instead.
All right, Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill. Nancy, thanks so much.
You're welcome.